The Eiffel Tower, French, La Tour Eiffel, is a wrought iron lattice tower located on the Champ de Mars in Paris, France. Built between 1887 and 1889, it was initially a temporary structure for the 1889 Exposition Universelle, World's Fair, to celebrate the centennial of the French Revolution. The idea for a monumental tower came from engineers Maurice Koechlin and Émile Noguier, who worked for the company of Gustave Eiffel, a civil engineer and industrialist. Originally conceived as a 300-meter tall iron tower, it was designed to showcase French engineering brilliance. The architectural design was finalized with help from Stephen Sylvester, the company's head of architecture. Gustave Eiffel initially hesitated to endorse it, but once convinced, he became the public face of the project. Construction started, January 28, 1887. Completed, March 15, 1889, just over 2 years, 2 months. Opening to the public, May 6, 1889. Made from wrought iron, about 7,300 tons of metal. Over 18,000 individual iron parts held together by 2.5 million rivets. Employed around 300 workers, using advanced safety measures for the time. No worker deaths occurred due to high safety standards. Many artists and intellectuals criticized the Eiffel Tower, calling it an eyesore and a monstrous piece of metal. Famous writer Guy de Maupassant dined at the tower's restaurant just to avoid seeing the structure itself. However, after its completion and especially after the exposition, public opinion began to change. Visitors were astonished by the engineering, and it quickly became a symbol of innovation and modernity. The tower was initially meant to be dismantled after 20 years, in 1909. It was saved thanks to its usefulness as a radiotelegraph station. The French military used it during World War I to intercept enemy communications. The Eiffel Tower can shrink by 15 centimeters in cold weather due to contraction. Gustave Eiffel also contributed to the Statue of Liberty's internal structure. Eiffel had a secret apartment on the 3rd floor where he hosted scientists and VIPs. In 1889, Paris had a date with the world. It was time to host the Exposition Universelle. The World's Fair. A global event. A celebration of science, art, invention, and ambition. It marked 100 years since the French Revolution. A century of change. A moment to show the world who they had become. And Paris didn't want to whisper. It wanted to roar. The French government made a simple request. Design something unforgettable. A monument that would stand at the entrance of the fair. Something tall. Something bold. Something modern. Designers and artists from across France sent in their ideas. Some were beautiful. Some were strange. But one stood out. A tower. Made of iron. As tall as a mountain. Thin. Open. Unusual. Like a giant ladder into the sky. The idea came from Gustave Eiffel's team. Engineers Maurice Koechlin and Émile Noguier. They sketched a vision. Not a building. But a frame. A shape built by wind and math. Gustave Eiffel saw the sketch. And he knew. This wasn't just a good idea. It was history waiting to happen. He bought the rights. Refined the design. Added arches at the base. Smoothed the curves. Made it not just strong, but beautiful. The proposal was daring. A tower nearly 1,000 feet tall. Made entirely of exposed iron. No walls. No decoration. Just structure. It would be taller than the Washington Monument. Taller than any cathedral. Taller than anything the world had ever seen. And the location? Right beside the Seine River. In a peaceful green park called the Champ de Mars. At the heart of Paris. But not everyone clapped. Many artists and architects were outraged. They signed petitions. They wrote angry letters. They called it a tragic street lamp. A monstrous skeleton. One man said it looked like a factory chimney taller than any building ever made. But Eiffel didn't blink. He told them, "My tower will be the tallest structure man has ever built. And it will last." He wasn't just building for Paris. He was building for time. In 1887, construction began. It took over 2 years. 300 workers. No cranes. No modern machines. Only manpower, math, and belief. By the time it was finished in 1889, the World's Fair was ready. Millions of people came from around the globe. They ate French food. Watched machines. Heard new music. But nothing stunned them like the tower. It glowed in the sun. It reached into clouds. People stood at its base, speechless. Some afraid. Some amazed. They climbed its stairs. Rode its elevators. And when they reached the top, they saw Paris like never before. It was breathtaking. It was bold. And most of all, it was French. The Eiffel Tower wasn't just a part of the World's Fair. It defined it. It captured what the fair was all about: progress, invention, vision. It wasn't just a monument. It was a message. To the world. To the future. That France was not stuck in the past. It was reaching forward. And though the fair would end, and the crowds would go home, the tower stayed. Tall. Unmoving. A silent witness to the moment Paris dared to dream bigger than ever before. Today, the Eiffel Tower is loved. Admired. Photographed by millions. But back in 1887, before it was even finished, Paris hated it. Yes, hated it. Not just a few people, but many of the city's most powerful voices. Writers. Painters. Architects. People who shaped culture. People who believed they were defending beauty. To them, the tower wasn't art. It was an insult. They called it a useless monstrosity. A metal scarecrow. One critic wrote, "We are struck, we are stunned, we are ashamed." And they didn't just complain in whispers. They organized. A group of 300 artists and intellectuals signed a letter. It was called "Protests by Artists Against the Tower of Monsieur Eiffel." It was printed in the biggest newspaper in France. They asked, "Why would we let an iron skeleton rise above our city of cathedrals and palaces? Why let a metal stick tower over Notre Dame, the Louvre, or the Arc de Triomphe?" They feared it would ruin the skyline. They said it would humiliate Paris. They imagined it would rust, collapse, or simply be forgotten. Even Alexandre Dumas, the famous author, hated it. So did Charles Garnier, the man who built the Paris Opera House. But Gustave Eiffel refused to back down. He stood in front of critics and calmly explained the science. He showed how the tower was designed to resist wind, not fight it. How the curve of each leg was drawn by gravity and physics, not guesswork. He said, "Do you think I would have risked my name, my reputation, and my money on something ugly?" Still, the insults came. People joked that it looked like it was made from leftover train tracks. Some even said it would fall over in a strong breeze. But Eiffel kept building. As the tower rose higher, so did the anger. Paris watched in shock as the strange structure grew. First the base. Then the first level. Then the second. Until, finally, it pierced the sky. And slowly, something began to change. People who once mocked it, started to climb it. Tourists lined up to take the elevators. Writers who once called it a disaster, now sat at its cafe, sipping coffee and staring at the view. Even the critics couldn't deny the view from the top. It showed Paris like a living painting. It was unforgettable. Some still hated the way it looked. But now, they loved the way it felt. That's the strange power of the Eiffel Tower. At first glance, it seems cold, sharp, industrial. But spend time with it, and something shifts. It becomes familiar, charming, endearing. And by the time the World's Fair ended, Paris didn't want to tear it down. What was once hated, was now adored. The Iron Giant had survived the storm. Not by shouting. Not by changing. But by standing tall, until the world caught up. Sometimes, the things we mock the most are the very things that change us. The Eiffel Tower wasn't built all at once. It was built piece by piece. 18,038 parts of wrought iron. 2.5 million rivets. All measured. All calculated. Every angle. Every bolt. Every joint. The metal pieces were made in a factory outside Paris. Each one was carefully shaped and drilled. Each piece had a number, like a puzzle. Then they were brought to the site. And the real work began. Over 300 workers labored on the tower. No safety nets. No modern machines. Just cranes, ropes, muscle, and nerves of steel. But here's what made it special. No one died during construction, except one tragic accident. That was unheard of in the 1800s. Most buildings that size had dozens of casualties. But Eiffel's safety standards were strict. He gave workers harnesses, installed guard rails, and refused to cut corners. Even his critics began to admire his discipline. The first challenge. The legs. Each one had to be set at the perfect angle. Too wide, the structure would collapse. Too narrow, it would be unstable. And remember, there was no concrete like today. The foundations had to be dug by hand. Deep into the ground. Close to the Seine River. Some legs even needed compressed air chambers to keep water out. But they managed. They aligned the legs within millimeters. Next came the first platform. This was a key moment. If the frame didn't connect correctly, the whole project would fail. But it fit. Perfectly. Then the second platform. Then the third. By March 1889, just 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days after starting, the Eiffel Tower stood complete. It rose 300 meters into the sky. Tall. Silent. Proud. Made entirely of exposed iron. People couldn't believe it. They had watched it grow. But now that it was finished, it felt like a miracle. The elevators were another marvel. They weren't like today's smooth rides. They were run by hydraulic power. A system of pistons and pressure. Complex, fragile, and groundbreaking. Visitors lined up for hours just to ride them. To see Paris from a view never seen before. To feel the wind. To stand above the rooftops. And to say they had touched the sky. The tower became a symbol, not just of France, but of what humans could do. With vision. With science. With courage. Gustave Eiffel stood at the top on opening day. He didn't give a long speech. He simply looked out at the horizon. The impossible had been built. Not with luck. Not with guesses. But with patience, math, and pure determination. And the world would never forget it. When the Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889, it did more than impress Paris. It shocked the world. Why? Because it wasn't just a tower. It was the tallest man-made structure on Earth. For the first time in history, iron reached higher than stone. At exactly 300 meters tall. It stood taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Taller than the Cologne Cathedral. Taller than the Washington Monument. Nothing came close. It was so tall. It made people dizzy just to look up. Clouds passed behind it. Birds circled near the top. People asked if lightning would strike it. They wondered if it could survive storms. But Gustav Eiffel knew what he was doing. The tower was designed to bend, not break. Its curved legs and open structure allowed wind to pass through. It could sway slightly in storms. But it would never fall. And that height. It changed everything. For the first time, humans could look down on their city. From over 1,000 feet above. They could see rooftops like puzzle pieces. They could watch the Seine River twist through Paris like a silver thread. They could feel the sky, just within reach. The tower wasn't just an engineering marvel. It was a new experience. A way to connect earth and air. It let people dream higher. But not everyone loved the height. Some were afraid to climb it. Others said it would ruin Paris's beauty. That it was too much. Too big. Too modern. But slowly, the public opinion changed. The height became part of its magic. Its power. Its mystery. Other cities took notice. New York, London, Berlin. They began planning their own steel towers. Skyscrapers would follow. But for 41 years, the Eiffel Tower remained the tallest structure on Earth. Not until 1930, when the Chrysler Building rose in New York, did anything finally beat it. But still, the Eiffel Tower held something deeper. It wasn't just about being the tallest. It was about being the first. It proved that metal could touch the clouds. That humans didn't have to build wide to go far. They could build up. And even today, surrounded by glass towers and high-tech buildings, the Eiffel Tower stands proud. No wires. No neon. Just iron bones and a quiet strength. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It just stands. As a reminder of the day humans aimed higher than ever before. And made it real. The Eiffel Tower changed how we think about height. About possibility. About space itself. It taught us that limits are only real until someone dares to rise above them. Today, it's hard to imagine Paris without the Eiffel Tower. It feels eternal. Unshakable. But there was a time when the city planned to tear it down. Yes, destroy it. Take it apart, piece by piece. Remove the Iron Giant from the skyline. Forever. Why? Because the Eiffel Tower was never meant to last. When it was built in 1889, it was approved as a temporary structure. A 20-year permit. After that, it was supposed to be removed. That was the deal. The city of Paris gave Eiffel permission to build. But only for the duration of the World's Fair. And 20 years after, they thought the tower was too modern. Too strange. Too different from the timeless architecture of Paris. By 1909, the tower's time was almost up. The countdown to demolition had begun. But Gustav Eiffel wasn't ready to say goodbye. He had invested everything into the tower. Money, time, his name, his legacy. He knew if Paris tore it down, they wouldn't just be removing a structure. They'd be erasing a symbol of vision. So he looked for a reason to keep it. A purpose. Something bigger than beauty. And he found it, in the sky. Eiffel realized his tower could be used for telecommunication. Radio was just beginning. And the height of the tower made it perfect for sending signals. He built a small lab at the top. Invited scientists. Ran experiments. And slowly, he gave the tower a new identity. Not just a tourist attraction. But a tool. A piece of technology. A platform for science and defense. By 1903, wireless telegraphy signals were being sent from the top. By 1906, the French military was using it to send secret messages. It even helped catch a German spy during World War I. The Eiffel Tower had saved itself by becoming useful. The city changed its mind. They extended the permit. Then they made it permanent. What was once seen as a temporary embarrassment had become a national asset. And over time, people stopped questioning it. They embraced it. They built stories around it. Love stories. War stories. Art and inspiration. Because it had proven its worth. Not just by standing tall, but by evolving. By becoming more than what it was built for. That's the quiet brilliance of the Eiffel Tower. It didn't fight to stay relevant. It simply adapted. Silently. Steadily. Purposefully. It went from hated, to essential. From temporary, to timeless. And it taught the world a lesson. Sometimes, to survive, you don't have to be loved. You just have to matter. The Eiffel Tower was once called ugly. Too modern. Too strange. But something changed over time. Something deep. Something emotional. It didn't just become accepted. It became loved. Not just by engineers. Not just by Parisians. But by the entire world. Today, when people think of Paris, they picture the Eiffel Tower. Standing tall in the heart of the city. Glowing at night. Watching over the Seine. Timeless. Elegant. Romantic. It's not just a landmark. It's a symbol. Of dreams. Of beauty. Of love. Couples walk hand in hand beneath its arches. They kiss on its staircases. They get engaged on its viewing decks. Thousands of love stories begin with a glance toward its peak. And that's the strange power of the Eiffel Tower. It makes people feel something. Even those who've never seen it in person. Know it in their hearts. It's been in movies. In books. In music. In paintings. In films, lovers meet beneath it. In songs, it's the backdrop to longing and hope. In photographs, it stands like a quiet witness to joy and sorrow. It has no voice. But it speaks louder than words. Every night, it lights up. Golden lights trace its bones. Then, for 5 sparkling minutes every hour. It shimmers. Thousands stop to watch. Some in silence. Some in awe. Some with tears in their eyes. That light show. It wasn't always there. It was added in 2000, to mark the new millennium. And it stayed, because people couldn't let it go. Tourists come from every continent just to see it. They take photos, but more than that. They take memories. A child seeing it for the first time. An old man remembering a promise made beneath it long ago. A traveler standing alone at sunset. Realizing they've made it to Paris. The Eiffel Tower means something different to everyone. But it means something. To Parisians, it's part of their identity. A silent friend. A steady reminder that even in a changing world, some things stay. To the world, it's a symbol of elegance. Of how engineering and emotion can live together. Of how steel can feel soft, when shaped with purpose. And let's not forget. Gustave Eiffel never intended it to become this. He wanted to build something bold. He didn't know it would become a symbol of romance. But that's what makes it beautiful. The Eiffel Tower wasn't designed for love. But it found it anyway. Not in plans. Not in measurements. But in the hearts of people who stood beneath it. And felt something rise inside them. Hope. Joy. Connection. Possibility. Because sometimes, love doesn't need a reason. It just needs a place. And for millions of people, that place is 300 meters high, made of iron, and shining over Paris. We see the Eiffel Tower from the outside. We take pictures. We stare at its shape. We feel its size. But most people never ask, what's inside? What secrets does this iron giant hide? The answer: more than you think. Let's start at the top. Near the very summit. Hidden from the public. There's a small, private apartment. Yes, Gustave Eiffel built it for himself. It's not big. Just a few rooms. Furnished with a desk, a couch, and a small piano. But from up there, Eiffel had the best view in Paris. He didn't throw parties. He didn't use it for luxury. He used it for thinking. For talking with scientists, philosophers, inventors. Famous guests visited him in that hidden room. Even Thomas Edison came by and gifted Eiffel one of his phonographs. Today, the apartment is still there. Preserved. Untouched. You can't enter it. But you can peek through the glass. And imagine what it was like to sit there. Above the world. But that's just the beginning. Did you know there's a bunker beneath the tower? Yes. A secret underground room. Tucked beneath one of its legs. It was built for military use. During the wars, it served as a communication post. It had telegraph lines, radios, and tunnels. Some say it even connected to other underground routes in Paris. It's rarely open to the public. But it reminds us. This tower wasn't just a monument. It was also a tool. A weapon. A watchtower for France. Now let's go back above ground. The tower has 3 main levels. Each with restaurants, souvenir shops, and viewing decks. But if you walk carefully and look closely, you might find a few odd things. On the first floor, there's a small section with a glass floor. Stand on it, and you can look straight down to the ground below. It's terrifying for some. And thrilling for others. On the second level, you'll find one of the best restaurants in Paris. Le Jules Verne. Elegant. Quiet. Floating in the sky. People come from around the world to dine with the clouds. And then, there are the elevators. They're not like normal elevators. They follow the curved legs of the tower. They rise diagonally, not straight. Each one is a piece of art and engineering. When the tower was built, this was considered a miracle. Most people had never even seen an elevator. Let alone one that could carry them 300 meters into the air. Every 7 years, the tower is repainted. It takes 60 tons of paint. Workers climb every inch. Brush in hand. Restoring its color, a special shade called Eiffel Tower brown. They don't spray. They don't rush. They paint it by hand. Why? Because the metal must be protected from rust. Because every detail matters. Even after more than a century. And here's one last secret. The tower changes height. Yes, depending on the temperature. The iron expands or contracts. In the summer, it can grow up to 15 centimeters taller. Even the sky doesn't keep it still. The Eiffel Tower may look like a quiet monument. But it's alive. Moving. Breathing. Changing. Full of hidden rooms, strange details, and quiet stories. It's not just something to look at. It's something to explore. A mystery made of iron. A giant with secrets in its bones. It began as an idea. A sketch on paper. A challenge to gravity. A vision of iron and sky. Today, the Eiffel Tower is more than just a tower. It's a legacy. It stands in the heart of Paris. But it belongs to the world. Every year, over 7 million people visit it. They come from every country, every language, every dream. They ride the elevators. They stare out over the rooftops. They take photos, but what they carry home is more than an image. They carry the feeling. The feeling of wonder. Of something built not to fit in, but to stand out. Not to please, but to inspire. The Eiffel Tower didn't just change architecture. It changed thinking. It proved that beauty can come from raw material. That engineering is its own kind of art. That even something cold and metal can stir the soul. It inspired other cities to build up skyscrapers, observation decks, radio towers, communication masts. But none of them feel like the Eiffel Tower. Because none of them were built at a time when this kind of height still felt impossible. It has survived 2 world wars. It has watched revolutions rise and fall. It has stood through storms, protests, celebrations. It's been painted, repaired, modernized. But never replaced. Because there is only one. Only one tower that captured the heart of a city. By daring to be different. Only one that went from hated to beloved. From temporary to timeless. Even its color is unique. Not silver. Not black. But a soft brown, chosen to blend with the skies of Paris. A tower that doesn't shout. It whispers. And its message is simple. Dare. Dare to build what others call ugly. Dare to reach higher than the rules allow. Dare to believe in something the world doesn't yet understand. Because that's what Gustave Eiffel did. He didn't build the tower for applause. He built it for the future. And now, over a century later, children still gasp when they see it. Artists still draw it. Lovers still meet beneath it. And dreamers still stand at the top, wondering how far they can go. The Eiffel Tower is not just metal and rivets. It's a mirror. It reflects what we believe is possible. It shows us that with patience, precision, and passion, the impossible can be built. It is not just the heart of Paris. It's the heartbeat of every bold idea. So the next time you see it, whether in person, in a photo, or in a film, pause. Take it in. Not just the height. Not just the shape. But the story. A story that began with a man. With doubt. With resistance. And ended with something that will outlive us all. The Eiffel Tower doesn't just stand tall. It reminds us that we can too.